and show the WebEx. All right, we are good to go.
All right. So my name is Arti, and the project that I did was one of the IBM Call for Code for Racial Justice projects, which was the Incident Accuracy Reporting System, or IARS. Oh, okay. So for the team, it was just me from RCOS, and the mentor, the IBM mentor that I worked with was Laura Bennett, and I just met with her as much as I could, mainly when I had trouble with something or questions about something. All right, so about IARS. So the issue that IARS is trying to solve, so especially after the recent racial injustices that we have seen across the country, it has become more and more obvious that there is an issue of systemic racism in the police force. And one main issue that occurs because of this is skewed bias or just the lack of evidence for such cases. So a lot of the evidence when it comes to these cases, especially involving police brutality and police harassment, goes unreported. Unlawful practices or racial profiling occurs. And unfortunately, there's not a solid way to assess the police behavioral infractions. So essentially, if there is something wrong that is happening in the way the data is reported, the way evidence collected, there's no way to assess it unless it's caught like as a fluke. So this way, police reports can be falsified and covered up easily. So the solution, which is what IARS is, it's a content management web application where people involved in the event or the case can enter any evidence they want into the database for their report. So the people involved includes victims or just bystanders. And any inconsistencies with what the police has reported will actually be flagged and be like brought to someone's attention. So how this works, this is the diagram from their website. So the user uploads the documents to the platform. Documents can include like paper document, like scans, videos, pictures. The app runs the document through the Watson speech to text service and creates a transcript if the documents contain video or audio. The document is translated to English if the document is in a foreign language. The document is then validated with other case documents using the Watson machine learning. And the document is then stored in the IBM Cloud Object Storage linked to a hash stored in the Hyperledger blockchain. And blockchain is what the main technology that IARS uses. And this is just a like sample picture again from their website, just of how like it looks, a mock-up of it essentially. All right, so in terms of organization and resources of IARS, they have a Slack channel where the developers working on it are in a Slack channel together. They communicate together that way. There is a tutorial to set up the application on your own system. So that is what I did when I first started working on the project. And it is a like 45-minute tutorial. And you do require an IBM account. Since the application does use some IBM technologies, you have to make an IBM account. I had to, and I was able to use their services for free. So in terms of my progress, so what I was actually assigned to do was like kind of separate from what developers are like directly committing right now. I was assigned to create a mobile application from scratch for the IARS project. They currently have a web application, so I started a mobile application. And I chose to do an iOS application, so I used Xcode and I did in the language Swift. So this entire thing, number one, because I did it alone. Number two, because it was a project from scratch. It was a real big like learning experience. So one of the first things I did was I completed a tutorial from Apple in Swift code. It was like a 12-hour tutorial. It just goes over the basics of Swift because I was not too familiar with Swift before I started the project, and Xcode because it's just essentially an IDE. So to like walk me through it and become more familiar with all of the features that they have on Xcode. So at the end of that tutorial, I created like this simple food tracker application where you can like upload your own like meal and then the meal name and then give it a rating as well. So you can keep track of what you eat in a day and something like that. So it was a pretty simple application. It didn't have like any databases or anything. So, all right. So then I started implementing the UI. I made a couple of mock-ups based on what the web application looked like. And then I started implementing them on Swift. And Xcode has a simulator where if you run it, as you guys can see on the right here, it shows what the application will look like. And you can, it's actually functional. You can use it and like click on the buttons. And if you click on a button, the next action will happen. So then it came to the IARS API calls, which is what I struggled with a lot though. So I watched many tutorials and samples of like calling the REST APIs in a mobile application. And then I was given, and then once I became sort of familiar with it, I was given access to the IARS APIs, and I'm currently working on integrating those into the mobile application. So in terms of things that I need to do either before the semester ends or just in general, some of the instructions in the tutorial were a little bit outdated because they navigate you through the IBM website and like downloading certain softwares, getting like keychains to certain things. So like some of the buttons and stuff were just outdated. So I wanted to update the instructions so that because the tutorial was only supposed to take 45 minutes, but it took me way longer just because some of the things were a little bit off. So I want to make that smooth so it reflects exactly what their website looks right now. I wanted to make the UI a little bit more professional. Right now it looks a little bit rough. It just looks mainly like buttons, and I just want to make it look more aesthetic. And then I need to finish implementing the APIs to make the application fully functional. So that is my presentation. Are there any questions?
Do we have any questions for Arthi?
So you mentioned that there's blockchain somewhere in the, this runs somehow on blockchain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
What?
I'm not super familiar with it just because I didn't really work on that aspect of it. I just mainly focused on the mobile application.
Okay. I
Yeah.
was wondering if you knew what exactly the advantages were to running it on blockchain.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah. Okay.
So we have another one in there. And by the way, can you release the screen and we'll get Graph
Oh, yeah.
starting? But there's another one from Alice asking, will your part of the project continue? I assume that the IARS is going to continue, correct?
Yes, IARS will definitely continue, and I hope to continue working on this project just because I'd like to like give them a finished application that's fully functional. So that's my plan. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Graph, are we starting up?
We're ready. Should I share my screen?
That would be the next step. Yep.
All right. Okay. Can everyone see my screen presentation here?
Yes. And you sound good too.
All right. Thank you. All right. We'll get started then. So, Graph is an editor for graphs, the discrete math kind, sometimes called networks. As students, our intent was for Graph to be intuitive, but robust enough to keep up with advanced graph theory topics. So first, we'll go ahead and get started with, I guess, some introductions. I'm James Weir, the project lead for Graph. I guess we can just go through in order of names just so we can match up voices to people. So that matters later in the presentation, I guess.
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Nicholas Demers. I'm the lead developer for Graph.
I'm Max Herman. I worked on the back end for this project.
I'm Michael Fitzgerald. I worked on the front end.
Max Dreadsteel, also worked on front end.
Joseph Senti, I worked back end.
All right. So here's an overview of the project just to get started. So we began by finding suitable frameworks to tackle our vision, and we settled on a sort of straightforward web application design using Vue and Semantic UI just because mainly it looks nice, it's simple, works for our application. and D3 networks, which is a lot of the main functionality for like rendering graphs, but all of the editor stuff we had to tinker together. So the first things that we tried to do were just basic graph editing features, creating, selecting, moving, erasing nodes and edges. So all of these features are things that we have done. So some of the more advanced features that we finished recently include node and edge contraction, the use of a couple algorithms on the graph. We plan to support more in the future, exporting to files or images, and supporting cookies so that your graph will still be there when you reload the web page. So just to show this off more to see what it looks like, we have a quick demo. I recorded a quick video just to keep this moving along. Oh, I'm hearing that there's no audio on the video right now, but at the very least, there's some things you can see here. So we're doing Dijkstra's right now. And this is an example of node contraction. And something else you can see here as we select items, you see info about each node or edge put into a box. So that's a quick demo. I apologize for the audio not coming through. I didn't realize that sooner, but that shows off at least some of our highlights, some of our key functionality. So next, we're going to, one moment, if I can get to the next slide, discuss a bit about the organization of the project. So we mainly just worked on GitHub. That's where we put our code. That's also where we host with GitHub Pages, where we host our website. So if any of you are interested in checking out the application, you can do that right now. Open up the slide deck and go to this hyperlink. Additionally, we've been planning to keep using the issue tracker on GitHub and the wiki for our documentation and just for project management. So far, we've been making good use of the issue tracker, but the wiki is something that we need to expand on further as we document usage and various extendability. So our team meets on Discord, and speaking of the team structure, we kind of paired off into teams based on experience and interests, but still leaving room for flexibility. We would just hold meetings loosely based on Scrum, check in, assign new issues, and more or less keep it kind of informal, but still focus on progress. Just keep it quick. So now we'll get into more about that team structure and what each person has done on the project. Michael?
Yeah, so I worked on the front end mostly. I spent a lot of time. I made some of the view components that we saw earlier. So I made the initial toolbar that we use, and people have extended on that from what I initially created. Also made the info box that we had showing there. I just did that recently. There's also other various issues that would come up, and I would just do various bug fixes related to like front end. Whenever we had issues there, and I also implemented loading from a file and a couple other smaller things like that.
All right, Max?
Yeah, so coming into this project, I had zero experience with JavaScript or Vue or HTML or anything. So spent a lot of time just trying to learn everything to start with. Then I actually got into it, made a menu drop down in the top right where you can pull up our About page or get a help tutorial to show up. Michael made the help tutorial. And then I added some extra functionality to the drop down, added the settings sidebar so you can change how wide edges are, the force of the graph, and node size. That one took a long time because sliders are really frustrating to work with, and the semantic UI sidebar is weird. And then I added a reset graph button along with some other random front end optimizations.
All right. Now we'll move on to the back end.
Hi, I'm Max. I primarily worked on the back end building features for this project. Initially, I got saving and loading the graph from pretty much a JSON file, a .graph file. You can also save as an image to share your graphs. I also got the algorithm functionality working, processing the graph data into workable form, and then creating the two algorithms we showed earlier to operate on the graph, and then updating the graph to reflect the output of those algorithms. Other than that, I worked on general bug fixes for the project as well.
All right, Joseph.
So I worked primarily on saving the graph through the through cookies. Originally, the graph couldn't save that large of a we couldn't save that large of a graph. Maybe roughly, I don't know, 7 nodes and edges pairwise between all of them. But now with some compression, up to about click 27, which is 27 nodes and edges pairwise between all of them, can be saved. So whatever you're doing, it can probably be saved by the cookies system I've placed. And every time you have to reload the page or you leave and come back, your previous graph will be there for you. So no problems if you accidentally close the page or anything like that. You don't have to load from a file. And then I worked on some general bug fixing.
All right, and lastly, the kind of catch-all for the end, a sort of full stack team between Nick and I. So Nick, you want to talk a bit about your stuff?
Yep, and it seems we've used up our 8 minutes, so I'll try and speed this along. So I worked on the front and back end. I'm very familiar with this tech stack, so I sort of just had my hands in everything. And I was mostly working on onboarding other members and just keeping everything organized and keeping people working productively.
All right, and for my stuff, I have no project manager experience outside of this, so it was very interesting, very educational. A lot of stuff I learned. So I mainly tried to focus on organizing things well as a project lead. So those are some of the main things that I did. Lastly, to wrap things up, some of our future plans for what we are looking to do. The first priority is expanding documentation to keep this project going, just to get new people on and to make things easier to work with. Then you can see some other features here that we're considering, some important things like edge weights, custom algorithms, various other customization, and possibly flow problems. That wraps things up. Do we have any questions?
So one of the things that, so it sounded like you're not using a database, so you're just storing things in cookies. Is that what I understood?
Right. So we figured that it would kind of be excessive to have a database and account system for an application that we're trying to keep as lightweight as it is. It's supposed to just be something, rather simple. And if people do want to store graphs for longer term projects, you can download a file, or it's just already in the cookies. I don't really see at this point, with the features that we currently have planned out, a reason to use a database or account system.
Okay, but you do have the ability to download, to save and retrieve files. Is that?
Yes, you can save and load graphs with UI.
Because I was thinking 27 nodes in a cookie is, 27 is a decent sized graph for visualization, but if you're doing some research, you might be significantly above that.
Yeah.
Cool. Why don't you release the screen and we'll get Tidor started. And then if there's any more questions for the graph team. So are there any, this is one, so while we're getting set up with Titor, and you guys can feel free to start presenting your screen. There's a lot of programs out there that would have similar objectives. Did you guys look at anything like sharing a common file format so you could be interoperable with them?
We haven't looked into that yet, but I do know of some other graph-related software that I've used in the past. Like for graph theory, I would always use Tixit, which was another open source, I think Unix based graph editor, which worked pretty well, but it did have some shortcomings, and we aimed for something that was slightly more presentable and very easy for people to access and set up.
Yeah, I was just thinking it might be nice to share a common file format, just from the standpoint of interoperability and stealing market share.
I haven't looked into that yet, but that would certainly be something that we should plan for in the future.
Yeah. Cool. Very nicely done.
All right, thank you.
So I think next is Titor, and then On My Own Time.
Hello, everyone. Mic check. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Good.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, so we'll start. Hello, everyone. We are Titor. My name is Asa Hot. I am the project lead, and accompanying me are Rory, Covenant, Richard, and Reagan. So what is Titor? This is our third semester here, so I'll keep this part short. Essentially, an easy way to understand what we are is Uber for education. So what we seek to do is match mentors and mentees together and give them a place to interact, a way for them to discover each other, and also a place for them to interact. Not necessarily the method. So our initial goals this semester were to first expand the team. Previously, it was just Rory and I, and we were both learning and implementing at the same time. Now that we got Reagan, Covenant, and Richard, we've been able to tackle a lot more parts of the project, and we've been way more efficient. Next, we have continuing API integration. So in previous semesters, we focused on the backend, so we had many API routes already set up, but our front end did not reflect those. And then cleaning up styling. We want our project to look as professional as possible, so we've been focusing on that as well. Here's the list of routes that I mentioned in the previous slide. So last semester we had all these routes done, but as for implementation, we had the authentication routes done from the first folder and then maybe the first 2 or 3 from the second folder. So we were able to create a profile and then retrieve profiles, and that was just about it. In this semester, we've just about completed all of these in terms of implementation. So I'll pass it on to Rory to talk about the stack.
So in terms of our technology, short story is we basically just use the MERN stack. So we had React and Redux in the front end and Express, MongoDB in the back end with some packages like bcrypt, nodemon, mongoose to kind of help us along with certain things. On the next slide, there's like a visual representation of it. So in the front end, we have React and Redux. They pass data back to the back end through Mongo database, and we use Express.js to query the data back to the front end. And then in terms of organization, we used GitHub, branching, and pull requests. So if we had certain tasks, we would usually allocate one branch per task to keep it kind of separate. We also made use of GitHub issues to keep track of features we wanted to add or issues that we encountered. We've, of course, documented our code as we went along, so not only each other could understand it, but newcomers to the project in the future. And every week we had Sunday work meetings, so we could all get together and work on things and ask questions and try to get things done. So now in terms of contributions, Covenant is going to start us off.
All right, so this is Covenant speaking. So my contributions to the project have been more on the front end side of things. My first contribution was involved displaying user cards because the goal of Titor as an online community is to have a way of showing users what their options are with other users in terms of skills and languages. So next slide, please. So these are the user cards. As you can see, they display their profile picture, which is the default for now, a short bio, their skills, and their rating. Next slide. The other thing I worked on was creating a general modal component. Right now, the component being used as a focus is a user card, Huey from the boys, but it's a general modal that can be used to display any information. Next slide. And lastly, I worked on adding inputs that offer suggestions and create tags from the user inputs. This was important because Since Teeter is a mentee and matching site, we needed a way to make sure we could store a user's languages and skills. So if you look at the tags at the bottom, before those were put, users could just enter anything, and we just had to hope that we could parse what they put in. But thanks to this, we can offer them valid suggestions to enter, and we can store that in our database.
So in terms of my contributions, I did a lot of front end work. So first I learned a little bit of Redux, and I was able to keep track of what profile type the user is. So either a mentor or mentee or both. I also worked on a component that lets you click on buttons and navigate through steps of a form, like 1, 2, or 3. That'll take you like the different steps. I also worked on the profile display page. So when you click on someone, it shows all their information. Most recently, I was working on generating colors for the different tags. So for example, math would be blue colors, and there would all be different variations of blue. And I did a lot of debugging and polishing with ACE throughout the semester. So here's the step component. So if you click on each of those different steps, it would take you to those corresponding parts of the form. So education experience, yep. And then here's the profile page. So if you click on Rory Eve, it would bring you to this. And it would basically just show all the information for that profile. And then here's the color spectrum. So basically the top one we're using for math subjects, then green for science, and then red and yellow for the humanities subjects. So I was able to generate those colors over the ranges.
Mic check on Richard.
Not hearing him.
Might be having some difficulties. If not, I can cover for him. So Richard covered some of the front-end React components, along with some cleaning up. What he worked on was the alert component. So basically in the Redux state, if anything either goes right or goes wrong, it's stored somewhere in the React global variables. And what he did was he made a alert component that takes those and creates dynamic alerts. And they can have different positions on the page and different times that they're rendered. And they look something like this, just to show them off. So there's different types, success, warning, and error, and those are reflected by the colors. And then you can specify how long that they show up, and also you can remove them using the X button. Pass it off to Reagan.
Hi, I'm Reagan, and I worked on design for Tutor this semester. All of my designs went through multiple iterations based on feedback from my team. So the first thing that I worked on was a pop-up window design that you'll see on the next slide. So it's for when you click on somebody's profile card, it allows you to display their base information at a larger scale, plus a price range estimate, buttons to add, message, and view their. On the profile page, you can additionally see a calendar which shows the tutor's availability, allows you to schedule a session. Next slide, you'll see the form design. Here, find a quick answer to your questions. You can select to filter by subject on the left, and on the right are posts which are color-coded by their subjects. Lastly, I worked on logo design. I wanted to keep the main colors of the website while incorporating the T's in T-Tour. Number 3 was the team favorite, so that's what we went with. Passing it off to, I believe, or Ace, sorry.
Yes. Okay. So I'll go next. I worked on full stack for the project. I dealt a lot with the post component, so being able to post something and then reply, and all the expected interactions that you'd have with them, like liking. I worked on the education and experience forms, so you can put in past experiences, and there's different form fields, and as well as a table to render those. And along with debugging, I also spent a lot of time pair programming with my teammates. I loved stepping in and helping out and seeing how they were doing. It was fun. And because I'm going last, I might as well just show it in the demo. And as I'm going, I'll show you everyone else's contributions as they pop up. So since we already showed off registration last time, just log into my account. So when you log in, it first renders all the users that are on the account. So for now, it's just the users that we have on our team, as well as their information displayed in these profiles. You can switch between the different views of mentor and mentee using this slider here. Because we don't have anything different to show for them at the moment, it's just a slider. And then we have the edit profile form. So the first thing you'll notice is the tags that Covenant worked on down there. And then the slider toggle, I guess you could call it, for what Rory worked on. And that's how you switch between the different views of the editing profile page. Here's what I worked on. So if you wanted to add a new experience, education, for example, you would do it here. You'd fill out your fields. I'll just put in temporary. Doesn't really matter what I do. I'll submit. It'll show up there. And now it'll also show up when someone looks up my profile specifically. A lot of the stuff we did work on involves the Redux life cycle, and that was a little bit of a pain to learn, but I think we're all experts by now. So I'll show you one of the things, say, Rory worked on. As you can see here on the right, there's a Redux variable called profile type, and that shows what kind of profile you're currently displaying. So when you toggle between these two, it'll change that variable, and then we can access this variable at any point in the website to say, hey, show the content for a mentor or for a mentee. Interestingly enough, if you untoggle one of these, say I untoggle mentee, so my profile type is now just mentor. If I submit, now this will automatically get changed to mentor, and now that's locked, so I can no longer change what type of profile I'm on. And then I'll return for now. I'll go back to the dashboard. If I click on a user, so I click on Rory, it'll go to his profile. And much like when we added our profiles in the edit profile page, his will show up here in table form. So this is his educational experience. So it looks like he went to Schenectady High School and he's now going to RPI with a BS degree. And also some of the work experience he has. So right now it's showing up with RCOS and tutor time. And that's pretty much it for those. Almost forgot. I spent a lot of time on the post thing. Maybe I should show that off. So if you wanted to make a post, you click here. It expands with a title and body. I'll type in new post. Hello, everyone. Just temporarily, I'll post that. It'll show up here. We see Richard's alert component up there, and it goes away automatically. We have the ability to like posts. So if I click on this, it'll like it. It'll add me to the list of likes, which comes in really useful because that's how we check to see if we've already liked something. So as you can see, like I've already liked my post down here. And I've also replied to this post down here. So if you wanted to reply to anything, it looks like Rory has a pizza party post down there. If I click the little icon to reply, it'll open up with this text box here, and I can say, I'll bring soda. Post, and it'll add me to the list of replies down there. Like that post as well. And that's pretty much it for the post component. I'm really proud of this addition. I'll go back to the presentation. I'll pass it off to Rory to talk about our future goals.
So just real quick, our future goals have to do with functionality. So mentors being able to create lesson plans, video call the people that they're tutoring, and also private chat rooms rather than like the public posting system. And we want to refactor our code because we've learned a lot these past couple semesters. So we realize some of our past mistakes with coding that we want to fix and make it a little bit more clean and consistent. Thanks for watching, guys.
All right, thank you.
Any questions?
So while we're taking questions, could we let's relinquish the screen and get on my own time up? And I'll ask a question about, so how close are you guys to having, you know, because this is kind of a time critical thing. It would be good to get this going, you know, while we're still in these kind of strange times. I think this would be very useful. Are you guys close to deploying?
We're very close, actually. I think from how we defined it on our proposal, I think we finally reached minimum viable product. So at the very least, you can sign up, you can set up a profile, and you can find others, and you can connect with them through the forum. Really, I think within the next month or two, we should be able to implement some of our chat features for private chat rooms, sharing files, and also maybe video calling. So not very far at all.
So do you have a plan to launch the summer session, or?
We think so, yeah.
Cool.
And
Excellent.
we'll be here during the summer as well. At least I will. I can't speak for my teammates. So we
Nice.
look forward to working on that as well.
Good. I'll look forward to visiting your site. All right. Any other questions? Type into the chat, and let's let Avery hold forth on my own time, or his own time.
Can you guys hear me fine?
Yep, you're coming through loud and clear.
All right, so I am on my own time. I started this project last semester. It just started as a personal website, and now that I got all the basic framework out of the way, I really took this semester to explore many different projects I wanted to pursue. My project proposal was very like, hey, I'm gonna work on a bunch of different open source projects, like whatever floats my boat, and just try and really diversify my assets and stuff like that. So the three that I worked on this semester are a project called Weyland, a website called Catskill Preservation, and one that I just started a few weeks ago called Ango. And I'll go through them one by one. So Weyland is a Minecraft mod. I was playing a ton of Minecraft and a ton of Valheim, and I was like, ooh, these can go really well together. So I started developing a Minecraft mod to really, I don't know, combine the really cool, unique aspects of Valheim into Minecraft. So I went through the two different major mod loaders for Minecraft, and I decided on Fabric, and that uses Mixins. I'll talk a little bit about Mixins later. So just talking quick about Valheim. Valheim is like a Norse-based sandbox game that's very boss-oriented. So you collect resources, then you can like spawn a boss, then you can fight the boss, then like that gives you like a resource to which then you can get more materials to fight another boss, et cetera, et cetera. But it has very unique, the exploration is very unique. It's like pretty much unlike any other game that I've played. So then I chose the name Weyland because it's the Norse smith and the King of the Elves, and I thought it was a good combination with Minecraft, which is there's a lot of smithing in Minecraft. So talking quickly about Mixins, which I really dove headfirst into, and really think that it's someone, if you want to be a software engineer, it's something you should really like just look at and explore. The philosophy behind Mixins is that there is source code that you cannot edit, like Minecraft source code, and you don't want to, even though it's very easy to decompile Minecraft Java source code. You're not going to repackage. You're not going to go in and edit all the source code and repackage Minecraft itself, and then send it off to someone. That's first off, that's illegal, because copyright. And then second off, it's just not use. There's no use at all. So as an example, we have this example function called target. Has two functions called do something and do something else. And then you can write a mixin. So this mixin injects at the head of the method target, and it just injects everything in that function. So after we call that mixin, it'll inject that function at the head of the method that we wanted. You can use many different, the at is really cool. You can do it before every return statement. You can do it on certain like calls of functions. You can overwrite full methods, full classes. You can like change local variables and stuff like that. It's really robust and really, really cool of thinking about a different way of thinking about how to interact with code and how to just code in general. Because there's a lot of time with coding, it's you rip and tear through whatever project you want. You can change every single aspect of that. But with this is there's a very read-only essentially, where you can't edit it directly, and you have to think about it in an abstract way. So what I got done this semester, I redesigned the Minecraft sprinting and movement system. I changed it from a hunger-based to a more stamina-based movement system. I also added encumbrance, so it's not like you can load your inventory up with whatever you want and then travel. You only have a certain amount of space, which I'm still fine-tuning. And then stamina is affected by cumbrance. If you I'll show an example, but if you try and walk when you're encumbered, your stamina slowly starts to tick down. If you have no stamina, you can't move. And then I went through the pain of a spawn structure mixin, which couldn't really find any resources of being able to spawn a structure like on world load instead of like just you could link in mix into a world generation. But and then my to-do list, it's very incredibly long. But yeah, now that I got the basis and the understanding of how it works, it's smooth sailing, not really, but more smooth sailing than it was before. So demo, can you guys see this?
Yes.
Okay, sweet. So if you see in the top left, I have to create better graphics for this, but there's a little bar, and as I sprint around, you'll see that my stamina starts to tick down. And if I get to 0 stamina, I can't sprint anymore. So then it slowly ticks back up. And yeah, that's the way the sprinting system works. And then if I grab it, let's say a stack of stone, this is not final, the values of how quickly you're encumbered and stuff like that. Everything is just 10 right now. Or rather 5. So now you can see I'm encumbered. So every time I take a step, my stamina ticks down without me sprinting at all. And then if it gets down to 0 and I'm encumbered, I can't move at all. And this scales. So right now I'm not encumbered at all, so I can move around and my stamina is regenning. So if I put in a lot more, double I have right now, I can't move at all. So that's something I still need to fine tune and get the because obviously like stuff like stone and certain ores will weigh a lot more than like a piece of wood or a piece of grass. And then this is my little spiral that I the spawn structure. This is right where I spawned in this world. But yeah, that's Weyland for right now. So the next project I worked on was Catskill Preservation. Which is a kind of a passion project for me. There was a for-profit company that was pushing a really horrible proposal to build a massive dam reservoir and hydroelectric power plant within the Catskill Forest Preserve. The hydroelectric power is really good, and that wasn't the questionability of it. It was that they suggested a place that they really liked, which would really displace a town and a lot of people. And then they selected 2 more worse places because you have to propose 3 to FERC, which is the Energy Regulation Committee. And so then because they just wanted this one. And such since I started this project, they actually withdraw their proposal, which was really, really good and really relieving. But yeah, the main thing, the reason that I wanted to start this project was because along with providing information and stuff like that to the cause, their website, you can file public comments, and the FERC website is horribly designed. Whether it's by nature or just lack of good software engineers, whatever, it's trivial. But you have to for the comments, you have to download each one individually. It's just a text file you can download. That's what it looks like. So you have to download, if you want to read a comment, you can see who submitted the comment and the submission date, but to download it, you have to download the text file. And if you were to download all of them, there's been like 13,000 comments or something like that. It's a massive zip file. So I was particularly incredibly frustrated because I want to read what other people were saying about it. But a lot of normal people weren't going to go to this website. And first off, to search for the docket number and stuff like that is just incredibly horrible. But so I created a website, and this is generally what it looks like, along with the home, which has a bunch of content on it of what it's about and stuff like that. And there's a contact page, and there's the comments, which I ordered by date, and it would look something like this. If you look in the top right, you can see this is what a normal text comment would be, and they had different kinds. So I also had PDF. I would host PDFs, and they could click on it and view PDFs. DocX and TIFs, which I think were from DocX, where you could submit a DocX, and TIFs were, I think, from faxing. If people were to fax in stuff, they would import it as a .TIF. I converted the DocX to TXTs and also had the option for the user to download it, and the TIFs I converted to PDFs and also had the option for the user to download it. My stack was I used Hugo for the website because it's just a static website. And I use Selenium to scrape the website. With the interaction, I try using requests and other stuff like that. And the way the website works, I had to interact with all the elements. So, which it's a lot bigger and a lot, Selenium's a lot heavier of a thing to run. But then I use GitHub Actions to automate it all. It scrapes the website every 4 hours and automatically pushes it to my Hugo site and auto updates the site. And this is my repository structure. I have a site along the left side, an organization called Catskill Preservation. I had a site which had the theme because Hugo uses templating, so I just created a basic theme. And then I had the comments. This is the docket number, just the comments of it. I made that private because we wanted the ability to be able to filter stuff out, just in case there was a really private comment or something like that somebody requested to like not display publicly, even though it is public, but there's that layer. But anyways, and then resources, which we use to host PDFs and other stuff, like resources like the proposal and other stuff. And then I have a preview site that's just for me and all the people who worked on this and stuff like that. It's just a basic preview. And then the GitHub, which IO GitHub Pages site, which I just use to host everything. And then the scraper itself, which is I wrote in Python using Selenium. And then the GitHub Actions would auto-compile the site whenever there was a push to master or preview, then would push to the respective repository. And then the FERC library scraper would scrape every 4 hours, then push this private repo, and then that would trigger a push to the site repository to update its submodules. And this is what it looks like. I had to cut off the side because of all the I don't know if you guys are getting this, but Bitcoin miners submitting PRs to your repositories with fucking essentially just using GitHub to mine Bitcoin for people's personal wealth. But I had to shut down all the repositories for weeks on end. But yeah, I don't know why this repository was selected for it, but it's been horrendous with it. And then my last project is Ango, which I only started a few weeks ago. Essentially, there's a GraphQL database. There's a website I use that has a GraphQL backend, and it displays a lot of stuff, but it doesn't display exactly what I want. So and they have a query system, but I couldn't quite get it to display what I wanted. So I figured just to go all out and just use all of the buzzwords, different packages that I could use. So I was I'm creating a GraphQL database and putting it into a Postgres database using Gingonic to create a RESTful API, and then using Angular as a front end. So yeah, so it generally looks like this. I'm using Go to query the GraphQL database. I couldn't find a good package for it, so I'm just using just normal requests. And then Postgres and using Gingonic for the RESTful API. This is still in the infantile state, so I haven't really implemented too much of the Angular front end, but I have gotten these are all the post requests and GET requests that I've implemented so far. It's been really interesting because this is my first foray to creating a RESTful API, and it's been really it's been a really good learning experience. And which is just my point of this whole semester is to learn stuff and to create good open source projects. So yeah, that's it. Any questions?
What was this project called again?
What now? The which project?
Yours.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
All right, let's type questions. Any more questions into chat? Nice job, and let's go with get Shuttle Tracker up there while we're asking any questions going forward. If there's no questions, I'll ask a quick one. Is this the Catskill Preserve one? Is this a standard way that they provide comments online, and could you adapt your project to be a general? If somebody else wanted to download comments for a different project.
Yeah, because it's FERC, which is the Federal Energy Regulation Committee, and they actually just recently rolled out this e-library, like I think 2-3 years ago. But yeah, it's something I plan on going future because as I was writing it, even though I was like, oh, I guess I have to scrape it. I was realizing I was like, oh yeah, I could totally generalize this and create a nice open source project where people can put in their own docket number, and other different fields and stuff like that, to scrape the site for themselves.
Cool. All right. Any more questions? Type into the chat, and let's go with Shuttle Tracker, our penultimate presentation for spring 2021.
All right, cool. Can everybody see my screen and hear me?
Yep.
All right, awesome. Everybody, my name is Matt, and I'll be talking today with Sam, Yifan, Yanding about Shuttle Tracker. So essentially, Shuttle Tracker is a web application that tracks the locations of the campus shuttles, routes, and stops across campus. I'm sure most of you are already familiar with it, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking about what it is. But it is a Web Technologies Group project, so it's maintained by WebTech while it's developed by RCOS. Our stack is Go on the back end, Vue.js and TypeScript on the front end, and we use Postgres for the database. The current iteration was started in 2015, and these days, in addition to the web application, we also have a mobile app in development, which we will talk about a bit later. Regarding our project organization, Shuttle Tracker is licensed under GPL3. Our primary communication channel is our Discord server, where we meet twice a week to talk about our progress and any issues we're facing. We have sub-teams focused on specific areas of development. This semester, the current sub-teams that we have are the Flutter mobile app team, the feedback form team, the admin panel team, and the documentation team. We also have a pretty active GitHub issue tracker for requesting features and reporting bugs. And we have an additional text channel on the Discord server for discussing feature requests and reporting bugs as well. We also have a super active repository wiki where we host all of our documentation, such as the installation instructions and a pretty robust troubleshooting guide, as well as a walkthrough on using the front end, and we have links to the backend Go docs on there. And finally, we have a code of conduct and contribution guidelines that offer guidance on how new contributors can get started and how they are expected to behave in the repository. Here's the distribution of how our team members are split up across the sub-teams I was talking about earlier. So I am the project manager as well as the sole member of the documentation team and the admin panel teams. So I'm wearing quite a few hats this semester. We have Yifan Wang and Yanding Zhang on the feedback form, and we have Sam Obe and Shlok Shah on the Flutter team, although Shlok isn't taking RCOS for credit, so he chose not to join us for the presentation today. So here's what's new this semester. First off, we've updated the documentation on both the front end and the back end, and I also completely rewrote the troubleshooting guide and the Docker installation guide. In the admin panel, we've added functionality to import all the model objects from JSON files rather than having to add all of those objects manually. In the feedback form, we've updated the database schema to categorize the feedback by prompt, and we've worked on adding functionality to the admin panel to allow administrators to view feedback that we've received directly through that interface. And finally, for the Flutter app, we've tested the app on desktop platforms, made some basic quality of life tweaks, and we've also written a bunch of unit tests for the app. So regarding our documentation changes, the documentation lives primarily in the repository wiki. And prior to this semester, some of that data was outdated, it was missing, or it was just flat out unclear. So with regard to the front end documentation, what I did was I replaced some of the old information and screenshots that were outdated and added documentation on new front end structures that had been added since the last time documentation had been touched. I also rewrote some descriptions of some existing structures to be more clear, and I updated the contribution guidelines to replace some outdated links that no longer worked. In addition, I completely rewrote the troubleshooting guide. I merged it with the common installation issues page so that there is kind of a single source of truth for the troubleshooting. I also added documentation to the troubleshooting guide about issues the team had encountered this semester so that in the future we can get those fixed a lot sooner. I also categorize the issues by technology so you can more easily find the issue that you're facing. With regards to the Docker installation guide, it was previously deprecated because it did no longer work. It just flat out didn't work anymore after some new features have been added. So to remedy this, I updated the Docker file as necessary, and I also overhauled that guide so that the setup worked again and it could be undeprecated. With regards to the admin panel, it's an interface through which administrators can manage objects such as the vehicles, routes, the stops, and the messages that the user sees when they use the application. Previously, the stops and the vehicles had to be created manually whenever a new shuttle tracker installation was set up, and this was really not fun. So now stops and vehicles can be imported automatically from JSON files, which can be pulled from an existing installation, such as the live version. And you can see a demo of how this works on the right-hand side. You just select the JSON file, you can upload it, and then after you click the submit button, all of those get created automatically so you don't have to add any vehicles or any stops manually anymore. Moving on to the feedback form, this is a new page that we're working on through which users can give us feedback on how we could potentially improve Shuttle Tracker. Prior to this semester, we had created a front end for users to submit feedback through. We had implemented an API for it, and we had began storing feedback in a new table in the database. You can see what the front end of the feedback form looks like on the right-hand side on that slide. Yifan and Yending we're working on the feedback form this semester, but unfortunately they're not able to be here live because they're currently in China, where there's about a 13-hour time difference. So they've recorded their portions of the presentation, which hopefully I can play now. I'm not sure if the audio is going to come through. If not, I can present on their behalf. So just give me a heads up if the audio is coming through or not.
It doesn't appear to be coming through.
All right, got it. That's fine. I can present on their behalf. Let me just, yeah, so Yifan was working on the back end of the feedback form. He was attempting to allow a feedback prompt to be set through the admin panel that would act as the question that the user will be answering when they're giving feedback. For example, an admin could set the prompt to be something like, what are your thoughts on the North Campus route? And then that would appear in the feedback form front end, and that would be the question the user is answering when they're giving feedback to us. So what he did was he worked on updating the schema of the feedback table in the database to allow the current prompt to be stored with each piece of feedback that we received. That'd be really useful for administrators who are looking at the feedback we got and trying to figure out what question the user was answering when they gave that specific piece of feedback. You can see the results of his work below in the screenshot. You can see there's now a new prompt column in the table where we store the prompt the user was answering when they gave that piece of feedback. Yeah, I'll skip this video since the audio isn't coming through. So Yending was working on creating the front end of the feedback form on the admin panel side. He was attempting to allow administrators to view feedback users have given through a table in the admin panel. To do this, he created a new function to grab feedback from the database on the front end and loop through all the feedback to display its attributes in a new table. Toward the beginning of the semester, he also spent some time learning Vue.js and exploring the existing code base since he didn't have too much experience working with front-end development prior to the semester. Despite that, he did say that he really enjoyed his time working on the front end, and he'll continue to try to learn more about front-end development moving forward. So I'll hand it over to Sam to talk a little bit about the Flutter app.
All right, cool. Thanks, Matt, as always. So my name is Samuel Obey. I'm a senior mechanical engineering student here at RPI. This is my 5th and last semester at RCOS. Very sad. But essentially, I guess I was been the main developer for Flutter Shuttle Tracker ever since we started working on it. It's a sub-team for Shuttle Tracker that was created in spring 2020 before COVID hit. It's essentially a cross-platform mobile port of Shuttle Tracker. We noticed that a lot of students weren't a big fan of using the web app, and they would have preferred a mobile application version of one. So we decided to start working on that. It's built with Flutter, the Flutter SDK, the Dart language, and we use the block library for state management and business logic. And Matt, I have a video there if you want to click on it. This is just a basic demonstration of the application as of right now. We have the map page. You can click on all the different stops, and you'll see the shuttles being tracked. There's a routes page. This lists every single route that's currently available and the routes that also aren't available right now. So you can look all the different stops associated with each route. And then, yeah, it's going to click on the, see, these are inactive routes. So these are routes that aren't going to be shown on the main page. And then we have the schedules, pretty basic stuff. We have the settings page, not too many settings so far. FAQ, I think it's going to go to the privacy policy also. So essentially the same features as a web application. And then we also have dark mode as well. Always got to have your dark mode in there. And I think that's the end of it, right? So last semester, we modified a few widgets to make sure they looked really good. We cleaned up the UI for the routes page. That was the page that was shown in that video. And we switched from polling to get shell data to using WebSockets instead. We had this really janky way of getting the shell data. We just like poll every like 5 seconds for the API. It was really bad. And so now we're using WebSockets. And the goals for this semester was we had to achieve a code coverage of 60 to 70%. So we could get it on the iOS account for RPI. And we also wanted to add some documentation because it's kind of not there right now. We don't really have any documentation. And also some general bug fixes. But yeah, as of right now, it has the same features as the web version, like live shuttle tracking, like routes, stops, dark mode. The only thing it doesn't have right now is the feedback form and smooth tracking. So that might also be something that we'll look into implementing in the future. Next slide, please. So as far as what was accomplished this semester, we removed a lot of unnecessary code and files that just didn't need to be there. We upgraded the Flutter 2.0. So this allowed us to actually build Flutter Travel Tracker on desktop platforms like Mac OS, Linux, and Windows. We added some quality of life changes with the UI, some basic tweaks there, fixed some general bugs throughout the app. And the main thing we did this semester is writing unit tests. Matt also helped out a lot with this, so thanks to Matt. We were able to write tests for our models, a provider class, a WebSocket class, and a repository class. And the testing pattern that we use for our unit tests were white box. And so far, we were able to achieve a code coverage of 11%, which is pretty far from our target of 60 to 70%. But hopefully in the future, if people decide to continue with this project, because I won't be here, we'll be able to hit that mark and eventually get this on the iOS store and the Android store. And that's about it for me.
Yeah, thank you everybody for listening. Do we have any questions?
Sorry, muted. All right, let's get I think our ultimate project is open circuits. Let's get them up there, and if there's any questions, please type them into the chat for Shuttle Tracker. I think the only question I have is how are you doing the testing? Is this are you using GitHub Actions or are you doing something else?
We're using the testing platform that Flutter provides. Okay. But I guess we could look into GitHub Actions also.
Yeah, I guess what I'm confusing 2 points. The testing being how you write the tests, and then are you auto executing them with a continuous integration?
No. Okay. We probably should be. That's a good point. But no, we're not using any continuous integration like GitHub Actions or anything else.
Okay, cool. Thank you. It looks like we have open circuits up. Any other ones? We have somebody asking how much work was it to switch your code base to sockets?
So It wasn't too much work because the backend was already developed. That's what the web application was using. But when I was first working on it, I didn't quite understand WebSockets. We had the API, so I'm like, okay, I'll just pull from the API. Like, that's a good idea, right? And then eventually we kind of realized it's really bad implementation. We should probably be using something more efficient. That's what the web application is using. So it was mostly done last semester, but it took about all of last semester to eventually transition to using WebSockets. But now it works pretty well, and it's about like one-to-one with the same functionality as the website. So as soon as the shuttle pops up on the website, you'll see it on your phone also. So it works pretty well.
Good. All right. Well, thank you very much. Let's go with our last project now, open circuits, and we are at the end of our time. So, please, if you can stick around, please stick around and give open circuits your attention. Leon, I'm sorry we ended up going so much over, but please wow us with your continued developments on open circuits. No matter what we do, we always seem to be at this point. Yeah, you're coming through loud and clear.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was making jokes with the people in my Discord that I might have to start presenting at 7, but luckily we beat that by a little bit. But yeah, hi, my name is Leon Montealegre, and I'm the founder and project manager of Open Circuits. So a little background to start, if you don't know, Open Circuits is an online digital circuit designer that is designed to be fast, easy to use, and also allow for complex and detailed design simulation. Some notable features are the ability to create reusable integrated circuit components, save and load circuits locally or to the cloud, export circuits as images, and many other quality of life enhancements. I began this project 4 years ago as an independent study with a professor at another school who actually uses it for his classes that he teaches. And we were also planning on finally bringing open circuits to Comp.org by next fall. I'm going to be talking to Guzman, which is super exciting. And I originally made this project because there didn't really exist any well-made, free, and also cross-platform products out there for designing digital electronics. Any I found were either expensive or clunky or just terrible in general. So I brought open circuits to RCOS about 3 years ago, and now there's been a ton of progress since then. And we'll get to what we got accomplished this semester in a little bit. So our tech stack consists mostly of TypeScript, and we recently added React, which has been exciting. And then we use Sass for styling, Redux for state management, Golang for our backend, and we host the project using the Google Cloud Platform. And in terms of our project structure, we use GitHub and we have the BSD3 license. We use GitHub Actions for automated testing and PR checking, and Codassi for code style enforcement. We mainly use GitHub Wiki for guides, but I finally added an actual documentation site that should be ready to go by next semester, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. And so now I'll go over some of the specific progress, and I'll start with myself. So over the winter and last semester, I've been working on a huge front-end refactor because our front-end code was a monstrosity. It was terrible, it was awful. And so I decided it needed to be rewritten, especially because the people on the team, they were all getting confused, and it was just bad. So I refactored using React, and I personally think the code is much clearer now. It's much easier to follow. Things are much more straightforward. Things are more concise. There's way more reuse of components. But with that came a ton of new bugs and other problems that I've just been trying to iron out most of this semester. So over here on the top left is a little code snippet that is just clean, concise, and this sets up a whole module for changing the colors of objects. It's just this few lines of code. And along with that, I've been working on the previously mentioned documentation site, which is this big thing in the top right here. It's still a huge work in progress, but I think it's pretty cool so far. It's going to be super helpful. And then the other thing I've been working on is this other dev-friendly thing, which is a terminal UI thing for actually building and running the code locally. And so it has the front-end code automatically building and watching out. On the left here, it has the backend server running locally, and then also has a QR code you can scan with your phone to open it up on your local network and test it out there as well. And so this is a super cool thing I've been working on. And yeah, so now I'm going to let the other members talk. And the first person up is Trevor.
Hi there. So I'm Trevor, and the main thing I've worked on this semester is continuing a feature that I started last semester, and that feature allows you to enter a logical Boolean expression, and it is converted to a circuit. Last semester, I had most of the core algorithm for this done. This semester has been mostly connecting it to the front end and filling in any gaps in functionality. Pretty much all that there's left to do in it right now is a minor refactor and add in some CSS.
Awesome. Next up is Sam. Sam.
So wait, my check. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm Sam, and most of the things I've done in RCOS this semester was just mobile related. So as you can see, most of these are inside a mobile screen, and I was just doing it to make the mobile side of open circuits a lot more responsive and fluid compared to like using a system designed for desktop on mobile.
Awesome. Yeah. Next is Owen.
Hi, I'm Owen. So like Leon mentioned earlier, we had a big refactor before the semester, and so with that comes a lot of bugs. And so it's always easier to find them than to fix them. So the biggest thing I did this semester was documenting a whole lot of new issues. I think I checked earlier, and I'm exactly half of the issues this semester. And I fixed a couple of them. You can see buttons work like buttons now. They used to not. And I fixed something else that crashed when you split wires. And right now I'm still working on fixing a bug where when you click on overlapping components, they get selected bottom to top instead of top to bottom. But that's about it.
Awesome. Henry?
Yeah, so I'm Henry, and what I did was I made a saving indicator which tells the user the status of what happens when you save. So like in the pictures you can see like if the saving fails, you have like an error, and then if the saving is currently saving, then you have the loading button. I also did like some bug fix specifically with like the position not being 2 decimal places, and I'm currently working on like a bug where like the multiple components were not displaying the correct names. And yeah, that's it.
Tosh.
Hi, I'm Tosh. I've been working on the history button feature both this semester and last semester, and because of the refactoring, I had to recreate the history button. And a difference between this semester and last semester is actually, you can see in the little GIF I have there, that the list will update with any name changes that you put in for the switches and like lights and stuff. So I thought was really, really cool. I currently am trying to move the history button off the side nav and onto the item nav. I've got that mostly done. I just need to style the history box itself, and afterwards I am going to work on creating a drop-down menu for grouped actions, so that way you can see what actions were grouped together.
Kevin.
Hi, I'm Kevin. This semester I rewrote edge and midpoint snapping after the refactor. And for both, I implemented like a scaling factor. So the farther away a component is, the less likely it is going to snap. And that's just for kind of usability purposes. So if you have a lot of components, they wouldn't all be like trying to snap to each other. And I'm currently trying to write a couple more test cases to verify that my scaling and my snapping all work as they should.
Awesome. Meg.
Alright, so because I joined late this semester and I didn't get a chance to do as much as I hoped this semester, but I was able to get started on a pretty cool feature which I think will just change the whole look of it and make people more interested in this. So it's basically if you can see like it's black and white right now our diagrams and everything, and I'm basically trying to like add colors to it, make it colorful, color everything, the wires, the lamps, the grid, even like the whole background. And that, I was hoping to also maybe sync the music feature for the circuits to like sync to like the song and add colors to that too. And yeah, I'm still working on that, and hopefully I can it'll look like as good as I'm imagining it to. Especially if I could like add a glow effect or something on the lights. And yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Sean.
Hi, I'm Sean. I've been adding a feature that basically allows labels to sort of stick to the component they're associated with. As you can see on the left, before they're kind of acted completely independently, and you would have to drag and select both a label and a component to keep them together and rotate them together. And on the right, you can see I added an add label button. You can still move that label independently, but when you move its parent object, it will move and rotate along with it. I'm still fixing a few kind of unique bugs that happen when rotating with other components and stuff, but for the most part, it's working. So.
Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris. This semester, I started off with just kind of working on some bug fixes. You can see on the left there, I fixed one where you can click through the little selection pop-up model that pops up and double-click to select the entire connected net of wires. And then I also worked on adding a new part where you can have a array of switches, kind of add it all together and connect it together to, for logic circuits and stuff like that. I still need to do a little bit of cleanup of the code, but as you can see, that is now feature complete.
Cheng.
Hey, I'm Cheng Bin, and this semester I've been working on implementing new features. So what I've done was I've made an autosave button to autosave the circuit every few seconds, and I've also made a feature to quickly create n components on the canvas when a component is clicked n times. So the demo is on the left, and right now I'm working on fixing the copy and paste bug.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's everyone. So there's been a ton of progress this semester. It's probably one of the most productive semesters we've had, which is super duper awesome. And we are live at opencircuits.io, but it is slightly out of date. So if you want the most up-to-date build, it's nightly.opencircuits.io, which gets updated automatically every time there's a push to master. And plans for the future. So we one of the biggest plans is to have more backend features, because right now it's just authentication, saving circuits, that's it. And so one of the biggest features is being able to share circuits, and then a continuation of that is having a library of circuits that people can look through and they could take and put in their own circuits. We could just build basically a huge database of circuits, which would be super cool. We also want more tutorials, more documentation, and a bunch of other miscellaneous enhancements and a ton of bugs, bug fixes that need to be done. But yeah, that's Open Circuits. Any questions? Also, one last thing, we do have a contribution summary just here at for grading purposes, just all of the links and stuff are put there. But yeah, that's it. Thank you.
So very cool. You are our biggest project this semester, and you actually kept on time. So nicely done. At least pretty close. So this is not anything about your technology or anything like that. Here's the question that I have. You said that your former professor or former teacher was using this. Have you talked to him about the new versions, and is he using the new versions as they come out?
So yeah, I've been talking to him a little bit. He did retire, so he doesn't teach the class right now, but I think he told the person who replaced him to use it, and I think they're still using it. I haven't talked to him since COVID hit. But yeah, we kept in close touch.
Because it would be really interesting to get some user data from somebody who's been using it, through your multiple versions and everything. It would be really interesting from my standpoint. It might even be, if they were willing, it might even be interesting to, assuming this continues on, to have them come and talk to us at some point.
Yeah.
Just
I mean,
thoughts.
Yeah, this picture right here is actually, I went to go visit back home, and I went to visit my professor, and people were using it in his class, and I took this little picture. So
cool.
Yeah.
So
I need to reach out to him again, but yeah.
That would be cool. Susan Maleka says, wonderful presentations today. I have to agree. It was nicely done. Any more questions for whoever you are. Open circuits. I'm blanking. It's been a long day. Any more questions for open circuits? Otherwise, I apologize for running over. That's one of the hazards of presentation weeks. I do appreciate your patience. Thanks a lot, people. It's been a great semester. Good presentations. I think I'm going to let you go. All right. Thank you all. And thanks for a great semester. I think we lost a lot of people over the last couple of minutes. So good job.